Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know which way this picture is going here, but anyway, I'd like to talk to the parents today, and this segment is on transitioning students from home to college. Now, parents, I want you to know that in order for me to substantiate this topic and me talking about it, I must let you know that I am a parent educator, and my background and foundation came from Purdue University in the area of parent education. And there are people like me out in the workforce who are certified parent educators, who work with family life education. So I'm going to be taking this from a perspective of my own lifestyle. So I won't be using all of the didactics that I had gained from college to learn how to be a parent educator. I had to learn that on my own. But what I want to tell most of you is that there's something that we can tell you when we've had children that we've had to transition from home to college. And I don't know about my lighting. I usually always have this problem with lighting, so I'm going to have to stand in a certain place. Anyway, most of us seniors who have children that have gone off to college, and we had to go through that whole procedure with transitioning. Someone say transitioning. Transitioning is very, very important because you need to know what are the mechanisms and the procedures for transitioning your children off to college. And what do you have to have in place? It just doesn't happen overnight where you say, okay, you're going off to college, Johnny. Now let's make that trip up to check out these colleges that you have on a list. That's one of the things, but it starts far longer before you actually are taking him on a road trip or her on a road trip. It starts when you're looking at your bank account and if that child's been working, how much money has he saved up, and the talk has to go forward. There has to be a discussion. And when I say that, I mean a discussion about what options does that child have that are sound and financially sound, where you're not going to put you and that family at jeopardy for going in the poorhouse and not leaving that child with a whole host of loans to take care of after he graduates. Now, we're not trying to bury anyone with debt, so we must definitely look at what is important for us to do when we are getting our children ready for college. We have to look at all of the financial income. We have to also look at what is going to be financially feasible for that child when he makes this transition. So it's a process. Somebody say process. It's a process. And first of all, my name is Sherelle Garth. For those of you who don't know me, I haven't been on for a while, but periodically I do come online to talk about different topics. And I do have a HERO program, so this program would fall up under the program of home economic and related occupations. And this is something that we're not doing in the schools anymore. So mothers, you have to beef up your home economic program. You have to sit down with your significant other and talk about the fact that you need to know, do my children have any gifts? And discuss it with your children and ask them, just what is it that you want to be when you go to college? Now, you're going to hear things like astronauts, scientist, engineer, doctor, physicist. And come on now, parents, we got to be honest. If our children have an innate ability and skill for these particular professions, then we can agree with them on that. But we certainly don't want to send students to school who haven't a clue as to what they want to be, and they go there and become a liberal arts major, or they go there and have no defined definition for their major for 2 to 3 years, and they're constantly changing their major over and over again. I want to tell you this, it's very vital to look into that child's eyes and maybe even have a reading. just what are the gifts that this child has, so that we'll be for certain that he'll go in there and stay his period of 4 years and transition out. And he won't end up taking a ride and making it 6 to 7 years before he graduates, because it's going to run up expenses, I want to tell you. Now, what I also want to tell you is that if that child have gifts, you definitely want to search around for scholarships in that area that that child has a gift in. Maybe he's a soccer player, maybe a baseball player, maybe a softball player, and maybe a basketball player or a football player. But we cannot hinge all of our funds on athletic ability. We have to also understand that there's only a certain amount of athletes that are chosen. So you have to get your child academically ready. You have to have that ACT test or SAT test. You have to see if they can score well to even enter college. And you have to make sure while they're still at home with you that they're engaging in their high school in a Core 40. What's a Core 40? A Core 40 means that that child is going to measure up with all the requirements for college. So when he gets there, he'll have all of his years of science and the number of semesters of math, number of semesters of foreign language, and making sure that he has all of his English and he has completed the 40 core, the Core 40 for graduation for students who are bound for college. Because let me tell you, I don't care how much Johnny or Susie may want to go to college, if they have not completed a Core 40, they cannot enter until they go to somebody's junior college to complete those prerequisites. Now, here's the other thing you have to bear in mind. Are they college ready? Do they need to go to a junior college to get their skills up? And if they do, there's no shame in the game, Mom. Dad, let them go to one of the junior colleges to make sure that they get all their electives out of the way. And sometimes those fees at the college are much cheaper than going to a 4-year top 10 university and spending much more money. They can always transfer, making sure that they go to a junior college where those credits will transfer over and they can stay at home the first year, keeping down the expenses for the first year because there's no college dormitory fees. They can commute back and forth from their home so that they can keep the rates lower. Now, you definitely want to check in the community to see what are some of the grants that are out there for our state or our county or community. You might be in a state like Indiana. Indiana has a 21st century scholarship that they want all of their students to go to college, but they must swear an oath that they will stay in school and not drop out and stay away from drugs. And if they follow that particular oath and stick to it, but in order for them to enroll, the mother's income and father's income must be at a certain household level, possibly below the poverty level, around 16,000, if I'm not mistaken. It used to be 15 or 14. And if you are just transitioning and moving to a town and you don't have jobs, that is the best time to apply. And you must apply when that child is enrolled in the 8th grade. As long as they're in the 8th grade, they can apply. Then that means that your child, once he swears in the oath, he will get 16 semesters of free college going to any of the schools, whether it be junior college or 4-year school. So there you have it. If he's met that requirement, then he can get those 16 semesters paid for. Now, most children say, I want to go off to school, Mom. I want the real experience. I want to stay in the dormitories. So now you got other expenses, somewhere to the tune of about $6,000 a year for the housing. And if you buy into that because he wants to be a part of this whole experience, now you got yourself some additional fees to pay for the housing. Now, more than likely, when he starts applying for his grants, and he gets all the grants he can, he may want you to apply for a parent loan. And that parent loan goes based on the parent's income. But first exhaust all of the funds he can get in his own name. And parent, make sure that you are not defaulting in any of your student loans, and make sure that your student loans are up to date, because when you file that FAFSA, it can hurt your student if you're in default and still owe funds for your student loans. Now, transitioning is a hard thing. A lot of times children say, but mom, I don't want to go off to no big school. I don't want to leave you and dad. I don't want to go away. But you must take the child on a road trip. Take him on a road trip. Come on, let's go on a road trip. Let's go on this road trip, son. And it's very vital that you should understand, I'm doing this for your own good, to make sure this environment is right. Once you take that child on a road trip, let them see what's going on campus. You can see what's going on campus. And you can say, well, my son may not be ready for this. He might need to stay at home for a couple of months, and then we'll transition him after 2 years coming to the junior college. And let them make the decision. If they say, no, Dad, I'm not ready. I'd like to stay home, or I'd like to go to a commuter school. There are some commuter schools that have dorms that are local. Look into those. Give him that experience of standing on his own 2 feet and making his own decision. But you always have to be engaged and involved in those financial decisions, because sometimes a child can make the wrong financial decision and get the whole household in jeopardy. That's right, because he can come to you and find out that he cannot stay there that next semester. Now he needs funds immediately, and guess what? The parent loan then comes into effect, and then parents have to rush and file for a parent loan for that student, and that could put them in some jeopardy and put them in some problem. Now, the main thing you must understand, the maturity level of your child. Is your child ready to go off to school? Can he handle decisions on his own, or is he one of those followers who doesn't know how to make his own decision? Always remember to tell your child, I have raised you. And one thing you don't let anybody else do, you don't let anybody else raise you, because you've been raised. And make sure he's been raised. When he's 16 years old, you make sure that you say, look, it's time for you to get out and get a job. And I'm sure they're going to say, well, Mom, I don't have no skills. How am I going to get a job? Who's going to hire me? And if he's doing any kind of work at school, you tell him that based on your report card and based on your index and your GPA, those are some tools that will get you a job. Then tell him to beef up his grades. Tell him to get on the honor roll now. Start working towards the honor roll because he wants a job. And then tell him that if he makes the honor roll, you're going to give him a small fee to let him know how it is to get paid for being on the honor roll. And once he gets on the honor roll, he's on his way. Now he's in 10th grade and he's staying on the honor roll. So now you can take him out there and get him a certificate to go to work. Yes, some 16-year-olds have to have a license to go to work, and you have to go and obtain that particular license from the school. But go with him on that job interview. Even go in there and talk to the human resource and say, this is my son. He's on the honor roll, and he's been doing very good ever since he enrolled in the 10th grade. And he has no work experience other than the fact that he's been working very hard on the honor roll. Will you please consider his honor roll status and the fact that he's a 3.0 average? I'm willing to bet you, I can even go home with you on this one, that this organization will be glad to have your child in their establishments if he or she is an honor roll recipient. And that's how my son got his first job. Not based on work experience, because he had none, but based on his status at school and his GPA status and the fact that he was an honor roll recipient. Do you know how much you can gain from being on the honor roll? You can even have your child apply for the National Honor Roll, and the National Honor Roll Society will even give your child an actual badge of honor. And that will tell the whole world that he is material that can go and work for an establishment because of the high honors he holds. Now, you must also look at everything else. You must tell your children that they're competing against somebody on the other side of the track who has an income level much higher than their family. And don't be amazed if someone tells you you're going to be competing with somebody of higher status economically and you can't compete because their income is about 15% more than mom's and dad. Now, if you do have a mother and father that appear to be middle income, and you know that mom and dad has always had a professional job and they work in the industry of education, an adjunct faculty, then you might think that you can compete with the other children on the other side of the track. But don't ever think that you're going to compete with them because they're at 15% level higher than your family's income will ever be. And household income is really the whole picture. Because you may have mothers and fathers that went to college, have master's degree, and their income may be equivalent to somebody that's just out of high school. Because our money doesn't spend the same way that other Caucasian money spend. It's just simple as that. But when you got mothers and fathers that are middle class and that are able to move in communities where there are white folks, you must understand that your money still spends differently, and that you must understand that you're still scraping to keep the mortgage paid and to keep the car notes paid. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Some of us think that our status is derived based on the kind of vehicle we can drive. I had to learn that the hard way. Nobody cares about which vehicle you drive off the lot, as long as it's depreciating when you drive off the lot. And more than likely, most of the cars that you purchase that are American made, they depreciate when you drive off the lot. And it's not an investment at all. It's a deficit. And even though the children might say, well, my mom and dad, you're both driving BMWs. Aren't we doing well? And then when you tell them, Basan, there's no equity in these cars and we can't really benefit from these cars because we are driving cars that are slowly depreciating and not appreciating. So therefore, we have no real investment. And these cars have actually become a deficit rather than an advantage where it adds to our income. Then you have to teach your child. It's best to get the best car that has the most economical value and that holds its value when you drive off the lot. I don't care that it's a Subaru. I don't care that it's a Honda. Then look into buying those types of cars so that you won't have a car within the next 2 years that you trade in would have lost its value, and now you're upside down in the car and you have to pay to get out of it. You have to discuss those things with your children because once they get out of your hands and leave you, you won't have time to have those discussions about purchasing their first car. You won't have time to transition them properly. They're going to want that car no matter what you say, and no matter how upside down they appear to be, they're going to want that vehicle because it's the newest and hottest thing on the scene, and they want to be seen in it to make it appear that they're moving up the ladder. Vehicles are something that can get your family in a deep, deep-heated problem because you lose money on vehicles. The best you could tell your child to do is to look on the internet and find a car that he could possibly purchase for cash. That way he has no overhead and he can then get an extended warranty to keep that car up, and now he has no car payment, only just the insurance. Now these discussions have to be had with your children before they transition. Number one, that they must have a job before they leave to go to college because they're going to save money for their college education because there are things that they need, like the various different food products that they want in their dorm and hygiene material. All these things your children should buy. It was 3 of us that went off to college in the same year. And can you imagine 3 children going off to college and the expense? But we have been saving and working to get our funds saved up from ironing clothes and laundrying out ourselves to do laundry and cleaning houses for the teachers. So we had money saved up when we got ready to go to college, because you can't expect your parents to pick up the burden of coming up with money for you to have your day-to-day expenses. You got to have some invested amount of money in this. And here again, parents, you must understand that maturity, you have to have your child sit down and have a conversation about developing into maturity. Because when they go off to college, you just can't call them every night and tell them what to do. Some things they must be able to have wisdom on themselves. But it's very vital that you should understand that this financial indebtedness can carry a lifetime sentence with it. Whatever loans they go into school to get, they'll say, well, Mom, I have no job and no time to work. I'm going to have to get enough loan money to accommodate me to pay for my livelihood. Sometimes that happens. And you may have to get a parent loan to supplement that income. And if that does happen, make sure that you don't go over a certain amount of money and don't go buck wild crazy every semester getting an extra $10,000 for your livelihood. Now you're using that to buy a car and to have clothes that are sent to you that are designers' clothes and gym shoes. No, you're going overboard. You're running up a bill that the church can't pay. And it's very vital that transition be a discussion in your household, because all of our children are not there yet. And we know this, parents. Sometimes we say, oh, this one's not ready yet. We got to hold him here with us because it's too much detrimental things he can get involved in. And the best answer to that is, if you've done your job well in training and teaching and have had sit downs with your children, then you shouldn't fear that child going off to school. But if you know within your heart that child is still a little green behind the ears, then you must take every precaution to make sure that that child is a phone call away where they can call you, and making that child promise to call you if there is a situation that they get into that they have to discuss with mom and dad. And don't let them become confused about that. Let them know that I put my foot down on this one, because some things you don't want to get involved in. Signing your name off on a contract is one. Make sure that we understand what you're signing, and make sure that you call us to let us know that you're going into the Burzaw's office and you have to make some decisions about signing your life away for these loans. These loans can be detrimental, and they can carry a burden for a lifetime for a child. When a child gets out of school and can't find a job, and they have taken out maybe $150,000 worth of loans, now they got these loans to pay back and no jobs to substantiate it. And some of them may not even get a job in their profession. They may end up taking a job in another profession, and they may find out that the job market for that profession does not pay enough to keep up their loans. So what am I saying? I'm saying that exhaust every effort to get your child in programs that will give him advanced standing, number one, in high school. Take advanced standing courses, so some of the courses that when you go to college, you will have already taken in high school, and you can get credit for them, and you can start at the second level of the 200 level. And also making sure that you go to schools that credits can be transferred over, and making sure that the school is legitimate and you can transfer your credits. And making sure that they go to a school that has the major that they want to major in, and don't just take it for granted that you can major in liberal arts or African American studies or women's studies and think you're going to come out and get a feasible job. You have to look at the technology, what is in demand, making sure they get credentials that they can substantiate by getting a job in that profession. Now, the other thing I want you to understand, Mom, is that you have to have a good relationship and a good rapport with your children. One where you could talk about just anything, and tell the child to never keep anything away from you, and that you're working on his best interest, and let him make some decisions. Let him or her feel like this is my decision and not just my mom's, and that I can trust my own decisions as long as my mother and father are substantiating the decisions that I make and they belong to me. Now, I will say this much. When a child makes a transition, sometimes they don't come back home. They go straight into not only the dorms, but sometimes they also transition out of the dorms into their own apartment life. And they might love that apartment life and never want to come back home. So this may be your only time to transition them. Now, there's something called transitioning for special needs children that needs to be talked about more. A lot of special needs children, right in high school, they take these jobs working for McDonald's and they never get transitioned out of those McDonald's jobs into a professional jobs, and some of them are stuck. And they cannot make enough money working part-time to substantiate them an apartment. So it poses a problem for mom. The child ends up staying in the home because of the cost effect and because he cannot afford living on his own income. Mothers, if you have special needs children, make sure that you offer them an option to go to college. Why do I say that? Because in their special needs IEP, it says that they can transition into college. Now, there is the disability agency that can also supply funds for your child to go to college, whether it be for their transportation or for their academic training at the college. There's help there for your disabled child to receive their SSI funds to continue on into college. And every child with special needs should be enrolling in someone's junior college. And normally they think they can't because their certificates say that it's just a certificate of completion and not a diploma. They'll just have to work harder and take those 100 level courses because they can't get into college with that certificate. They must take prerequisites, and it's going to take longer. But the monies are there. Make sure you utilize those monies, ma'am. And fathers, make sure you utilize it because the SSI funds can go a whole lot longer than what you anticipate. And that child can stay in school as long as they're in school up until, I think, age 22. It used to be 22. It might be 27 now. And they can still get their SSI checks to pay for their college. And we definitely want to make sure that our special needs children who have ability to follow direction have an opportunity to go to college. Now, let me also say that teach your children how to do things around the house. Make sure that they spend time with you on Saturday mornings, getting up, cleaning up, and keeping their houses tidy, because these are the skills they're going to take with them into their new apartment. And don't just raise your daughters and showing them how to iron and showing them how to go grocery shopping. Take your sons and allow them to do the identical same thing, because they're going to be managing households in their apartments, and they won't be coming back home to ask mom how to do it. So mom has got to take that extra time to show the male and the female both how to govern their households. And also, don't forget to put prayer in their life and to center them in some type of relationship with God. And even if there's no church around to go to, show them how to pray and teach them how to pray and direct them towards the center of letting God be everything in all things, and that they must always call on their higher self before any decision is made. And don't just run with any crowd, and making sure they don't forget the values that you've implanted in them. And if you place them deep enough in their heart, they won't stray from them. They'll draw from them in the end time. Now, it's very vital that you should understand that college is not everything. And some children don't do well enough on SAT scores and the ACT scores where they can't get into college. So a lot of them want to go to trade school. And don't be upset, mom, that they have to go to trade school because they haven't laid the foundation while in high school. Trade schools are not all bad. And we must remember that it is vital that we look at trade schools for our children that have good dexterous skills and who can learn a trade. And if your child can learn a trade, you definitely want them to use their hands to work by the sweat of their brows. And one thing for certain we must always remember, we lay Iwa Pelu, which is good character and good conduct. Because whatever these children do out here in the street can lead back to your home life, mom, and it could affect your front door. So make sure that they're not running with the wrong crowd, getting in trouble, changing their whole lifestyle. Now they're another whole person that you don't recognize. You're transitioning them. And you want to make sure this transition is smooth sailing. And you want to make sure that you cover all of your dots and cross all your T's, because you don't get this chance again once that child transitions out of your home, unless they come back to stay in your home after getting out of college because they can't find a job. And sometimes they may become bitter, and they may feel like they're not growing up and being an adult, and they may feel like they're in a situation where now they're a little boy again, a little girl, and they feel bad about it. So don't make them feel bad about it. Help them to find a path to go back out on the job market to look for employment. Because sometimes this happens where the child comes back home and you must retransition him or her again. And you can find that happening, but it's no fault of the child when there's no jobs in that area, in that community. Then help them to relocate. And don't be afraid for them to relocate in order for them to go find a job. And show them that it's perfectly okay. Now, you're going to have to give these children support, moral support, and you're going to have to trust them that they can stand on their own 2 feet. And don't always be scolding them and saying you're just like your dad. Always speak positive, and they will do well if you speak positive. If they know you're behind them and supporting them, they will do exactly as you say because they want to please you. Make sure you have a good relationship with your children when they're transitioning, and make sure that they're not afraid to tell you anything. Sometimes the sooner someone tells you something, the quicker you can get on it and correct things, but you don't want things to go unlooked, and then you'll say, well, why didn't you tell me? We could have straightened this out a long time ago. Now, there are going to be girls involved in their life, and there are going to be boys involved in their life, and you have to make sure that they understand that you want them to have healthy relationships. You want them to have relationships that are good and positive, and you don't want them to be sleeping around with every Joe, Dick, and Harry. And you want them to make sure that they have solid relationships when they make a commitment to go out with girls or guys. And you want to be able to talk about their relationships and have them call you on a weekly basis, not just because you're checking up on them. Oh, Mom, do I have to call you every week? You know, nothing has changed. But get a relationship where you're talking to them about real things, about how things are going in the classroom, how they're being treated. And do they feel that partiality is being shown? Or do they feel that somebody needs to speak to the professor because he's not giving him proper grades? Because all of us are going to have that to happen to us. And I know I did. And you have to have an advocate to speak out on your behalf. And it doesn't always have to be Mom. Mom can call the school and say, how's so-and-so doing? And she can pull the coattail of maybe one of the TAs or the aides to speak to the professor on your behalf or on your son's behalf. Because they're grown now, and they don't have to tell you anything at the school. As a matter of fact, they can't let out any information because of all of the OSHA laws and the regulation laws for protecting the child's privacy. Once he turns 18 or she's 18, you can't just call into the college like it's a high school and get information because they won't give it to you. So you're on the outside, right, Mom? So you think, and you don't know what's going on, and you're just out of your mind because you don't want to know. You want to know how the grades are going and if they are progressing in school or if they're wasting their time. Then you and your husband may have to make a trip to the campus, and you might have to sit down with your son and say, now just look me in the eye and tell me the truth. How are things going, and do you need any assistance or help? And you have to do these things because I'm telling you that it's a journey that they're going on, and you got to make sure that on this journey they have packed their lunch good, and you are supporting them, and that they have the things they need, and there are things that can help them. Now, hold on. Hello? 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 Is anyone there? Okay. somebody that don't want anything, just want to bug me. I got those bugaboos that want to bug you all the time. Anyway, I want to say for the record that getting prepared for transition is a very important time. And that transition has to start when they first start getting credit for their high school courses. And that may start getting prepared for transition when they're in 8th or 9th grade, because you're looking at the 21st Century Scholar. And go up to your schools now and inquire about a 21st Century Scholar. And if you don't have it in your state, ask them if they have any scholarships that they're giving away for children who swear an oath that they will stay away from gangs and that they won't be addicted to drugs, and see if those scholarships are available where you can apply for them and you can get your child ready as early as 8th grade. But transition is important, and it's very vital that you should understand that if you don't start the process for transitioning this child, he'll have the whole thing confused and he won't know where to start. And don't spend your time on a lot of road trips. Kind of narrow it down to the schools within your state so that you could easily access the student, and the student could come home at their leisure and they're not on the highway driving all the time off in faraway states. And try to find the best schools, sure, but try to also look if there's any African American schools that they can attend, because you definitely want them to go and get culturally relevant information. Because what we make a mistake in doing, and we want to go to those top 10 white schools, and we don't look at the experience that the child may get from going to an all-black school. I wish sometimes that I had attended at least undergrad or graduate in all-black schools, because I needed that experience socially to know culturally who I was. And you could be so academically ready that you're culturally connected, and that is a problem just as well. You want your children to be culturally connected and to be able to function in societies where there are minorities. And if your child goes to a school that is in a predominantly black community, that could also give them that experience they need. But no one wants to send their child away to become acclimated, to become like a white person, and then they come back and you don't know the child socially. They are not socially ready to go back into their black community because they don't fit in. And that can be a problem too, because children lose friends when they come back and now they're a valley girl and they cannot fit in with the black community. So that's very vital, and make sure when you go to visit your child on campus that you take a look at the surrounding. Is he surrounded by any black culture stores? Do they have black products? And is this child beginning to forget about the fact that he's black and has no ability to tap into a black community? Then you might want to say something about that. You might want to say, if you tend to go to grad school, I definitely would suggest that you go to grad school where there are more minority students, because the more minority students you have, the better chances you have for doing well in your graduate work, because of the fact that there's a cohesiveness of your group. And you're not just the only one all the time. A lot of times people say, I'm the only one. Yeah, I'm the only black person in our group. And then they tend to say that with animosity, as if they're upset about it. And then sometimes they say that with pride, thinking that they're unique in some kind of way. But we have to stay black. And we have to be true to our own and to know ourselves. And we have to be culturally sensitive to the fact when we know we don't fit in and we don't have any friends and we're just an outcast. We have to be able to accept that and say, no, this is not where I want to be. And don't be afraid to allow the child to say, Mom, I'm going to have to transfer. It's just not where I should be. I don't fit in. And don't go telling them, oh, yes, you do, but you're going to get the white man's education and you're going to be able to go out and find jobs. Not necessarily so, Mom. The one thing you must teach the child is to know thyself. And once you've taught them that their culture matters and that it's very important, that they're not competing with white folks all the time, because we don't have the economic status to compete with white folks when they have 15% more income than we have. Let's just face it, mom and dad. Quit lying to yourself, saying, well, we're just as good as them, when we know that their income levels are much higher than ours, and we have nothing to compete with when we come to the table. Now, is that shouting yourself down? No, it's being honest with yourself, because all of these talks and these transitions, you must prepare your student for this, because when they go out here thinking that they're on the same level as a white person financially and economically, then they're dead wrong. We come from a background of slavery. They've robbed us of our land and our riches, and they've taken away so much from us that we have nothing to compete with. And we're competing against the odds. And we must be able to say this to our children. Don't go out there thinking you can beat the white man at his economic status because he got you down hands pat. Because his income is far greater than your mom's and dad, and it always has been. Because our income as a master's degree is equivalent to their high school level people income. And that's just the way it is until we begin to start building millionaires in our community. Like Madam C.J. Walker. Let's study the history of Madam C.J. Walker. Where does she get her wealth from? And how does she maintain it? She always went to the center of the meetings and demanded that those corporations who were white give something back to help those black women who were less fortunate. She put it on them. She made them know that they were not giving enough to black people, and they had taken so much from black people, and they felt so guilty that they pledged money to her organization to help those women to enroll in her program and go to work for her. So she kept the money in the family and became a millionaire. But no one talks about Madam C.J. Walker. They hide her books in the library and put them on special postings where you can only read them in the library. You cannot check them out. Why is Madam C.J. Walker so protected? Because they want to see how she got her riches, and they don't want anybody black to find that out before them. So therefore the books are off limit to you. So daughter, go and read about how the most famous Madam C.J. Walker, who held the straightening comb and created the first jar of grease that will mend the broken areas of your hair. Read about her. Find out about her inventions. If you're going to be rich when you come out of that school, you must pattern your richness after some black rich commodity and look at how they got their riches, because it's not one thing to get your riches. You have to maintain and keep your riches. But when you're going from hand to mouth and it's never enough, I don't care how many BMWs you drive, you still have to pay the notes on those BMWs, and they don't appreciate. You can't borrow from them. So you have to get land, and get land more abundantly. And understand that we are still fighting for reparation. And our time will come. And when our time does come, make sure we have some ducats put away from our hard labor and work that we can invest in to get riches and get wealth. And that's all I have to say about this conversation on transitioning our students from home to college. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, and I will be back at you later on this evening. And thank you so much. And do have a pleasant day. Odabo. Baba Booey to you, y'all. Straight ahead and into the future, Milwaukee. Baba Booey to you, y'all. Straight ahead and into the future, Dallas. Baba Booey to you, y'all. Straight ahead and into the future, Indianapolis, Indiana. Baba Booey to you, y'all. Straight ahead and into the future with you, Gary, Indiana. And Odabo. Peace.